Hello, everyone. This is Democratic Defenders, and my name is Rich Garling, and my co-host is.
Tim Bagwell.
We're having
We,
ourselves a
we
good time today.
discussed the fingers, Rich. We discussed the fingers, and
Go
you
like this.
pathologically had to do it.
Yeah, we're having ourselves a good time here today, folks.
That's
And
right.
so,
That's right.
so we just thought we'd have a general show, and talk about what's been going on the past week in politics. Not only in the United States,
2 weeks,
but
maybe.
internationally. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks we can go back. What the heck,
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But hey, one of the things I think that's really on top of the news is the Strait of Hormuz. What's going on there? So Tim, what do you think about all that?
Well, I think that we, as usual, the United States got itself in a jam in a war in Asia. As we learned from the Princess Bride, that the things we don't want to do is get involved in a land war in Asia, and we've done it yet again. And it's a sea war also, and Iran has the advantage with the small Straits of Hormuz and their permanent location along that strait, and with enough unmanned munitions to cause trouble, and enough ships to still cause trouble, because they don't want to ship. We don't want to sink any ships in the strait because it's dang narrow, and it's dang shallow. I don't know how much that means in terms of navigation, but too much is too much. So
Well,
it
it's kind of like the
seems
Suez Canal, almost in the sense that if you sink a ship on the Strait of Hormuz, you're in trouble because that ship's going to get
yeah,
in the way of navigating. And a
yeah,
lot of the ships that go through that strait are very, very, very heavy ships. So it's
right.
you don't have much room to play with
Plus the chance
there.
for
And so,
pollution, for damage and pollution in the area as a not a current strategic issue, but a long term strategic issue. Should a tanker, but I think the Iranians are playing their cards here, and they're not going to. I don't think they're going to sink a tanker because of
nope,
that.
right,
They want
right.
the Strait of Hormuz eventually to be opened, but they don't want the United States in control of it, and I don't think they have anything to fear about that, because we're a government run by incompetents who don't know how to do a war, and we got a negotiator who's the president's son-in-law who has special interests with Saudi Arabia, even though the Saudis are somewhat aggravated with us over this entire issue.
Oh my
That
God.
yeah, they're constrained, although I think they're making money off of it, as are the Iranians. You know,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
talks are the
And
Iranians are going to make money off of this, although they lost many people. They're yeah. And
what
meanwhile,
was that?
uh,
What was that one quote you came out with about your enemy? We have it on the back
oh,
of our business cards.
yes, right, right. Don't tell your enemy about it. Don't inform an enemy about his mistakes. Something
Yes,
along those
yes,
lines. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I had to laugh. Well, I had to laugh at all of this because of the fact that the Russians, you know, were this so-called feared army, and they were going to run over the Ukrainians, and we're still waiting for them to do that. What, 2, 3 years into this war, with Ukraine, their invasion, of Ukraine, and now, of course, what does the United States turn around and do? The exact same thing. We have shown just how weak we really are. It used to be that people would fear, if we just merely made the threat of putting U.S. forces someplace, people would back off.
All
Now,
right.
that no longer exists.
Yeah, well,
And
I
the
think
incompetent people. Ugh, go ahead.
well, yeah. Well, I think enough. Unfortunately, with Vietnam, Afghanistan, now Iran, that our threats. Maybe we don't know about all the threats we made that stopped a war. They should advertise those more. But this is the case. Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Iran, and we're probably leaving somebody out because we're all over the place. Uh, the we we fail in a war in Asia. And again, from the Princess Bride again, quoting the Princess Bride, things you
Mm,
don't do.
yeah.
Don't cheat. Don't deal with the Sicilian when death is involved, and don't fight a war in Asia, a land war in
Yeah.
Asia. So
Well, Douglas MacArthur, General Douglas MacArthur, has told us that we don't want to get ourselves involved in a land war in Asia.
Yeah,
Now, Japan, mind you, World War II and Japan were different. But, since Korea, what have we gotten?
yeah. Well, the thing about World War II is that Japan was actually on the fringe. Always, everything was on the fringe except for China. Everything was the fringe of Asia, with
Hmm.
with the potential for an American backlash from the United States. So so the Straits of Hormuz, the Iranians appear to remain in control. The idea of Jared Kushner being our chief negotiator is flawed. You know,
That's a joke.
so
He's there
it's
for business purposes only. He's there to
yeah,
stuff his
business
pockets.
purposes.
Yeah, that's it.
If we're going to fail, we're going to fail in favor of the Trump of the Trump the businesses. So
Yeah.
yeah the
Well,
but there's other news too. There's the
well, here,
Hungarians.
let me. Oh, the Bulgarians and the Hungarians?
Hungarians.
Yeah, well, both of
Yeah,
them
the
had
Bulgarians.
elections recently.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Bulgarians.
I don't know what
Yeah,
the
I
Bulgarians
think
were
maybe
thinking about.
hopefully the EU and the Turks can keep the Bulgarians in line.
I've
They're
never
kind of
known Bulgaria to be a big deal. Okay, and all that, and the Hungarians, of course, one time used to rule, that whole area, the Austro-Hungarian
well,
Empire.
well,
You know,
The Austrians sort of ruled it. The Austrians sort of ruled it.
well, yeah,
So
but for
yeah,
some
the
reason they
Hungary
threw
is
the
interesting.
Hungarians in there.
Hungary is interesting because it's amazing how democracy has persisted in the long run. It was a monarchy a little over a century ago.
Yeah,
A little over a century ago, it was and it really wasn't a co-equal monarchy. The Austro-German crown of the Habsburgs held sway over the Hungarian kingdom, so it was actually and so many people were supposed to be learning German, but so they get their independence and have, of course, economic troubles, and then they get swallowed by Horthy, I believe his name was, during World War II, a fascist during World War II, cooperating with the Nazis. And then they get consumed by the Soviets, who could have put them under their boot. So democracy took a while to get to Hungary.
yes,
It
it
took a
did.
while,
Yes, it did.
and
Well, that whole area.
so they had some comfort. One could argue with autocracy. They had some level of comfort with that, allowing Orban to slide in and then bring them back over to an authoritarian type regime. And
Yep.
meanwhile, he's financing CPAC. You know, he's interfering in our electoral processes, in effect,
Hmm.
engaging in them at any rate, sponsoring
Well, yeah,
these,
but
helping the
come
sponsor.
on. They were helping each other. Vance went over there to campaign for him. And of course, you see how well that worked out.
Yeah, that worked out
And
real well.
so, yeah, real well. But here's the thing.
Mr. President, Mr. President, are
What
you?
you, yep. Well, so what you see happening here in Hungary is you see the citizens rising up and saying, "Okay, we've had enough of this noise. We want
Yes.
more of our freedoms." But the big key was economics. And the
Yeah.
reason why Orban succeeded for so long was the fact that economically these people weren't hurting, and they were able to do, the things that they wanted to do with very little problems from Orban or his government. What they didn't realize was the efforts he was putting in to take things over. Very similar to what Trump is trying to do today. And the
Yeah.
problem with those types of autocracies, are they're very short-lived. They're very fragile. Okay, hey, you start running out of people to run things start going downhill, and you
Right.
eventually lose your legitimacy, which is
Yeah.
exactly what was happening with Hungary. And the people decided, okay, you're no longer legitimate. We're going to put these guys in, and we're going to put this thing back on course the way it should be. And that's what I
Exactly.
hope we'll see. Well, that's what I hope we'll see here in our own country, because it's slowly falling apart. These people really don't know how to run a country. It's
What,
that
what I'm not
simple.
caught up on. What I'm not caught up on yet, when you mentioned what's happening in our country, there have been congressional elections, and we've won, and the people have given their notices, so I'm wondering what the balance is in Congress right now. You know,
Still very close. Still very close. But it's
well, it's
not.
always
But the
very close.
Republicans are still in charge.
Yeah, but yeah, it's I would like to know what that number is now. Uh, what
Yeah, let's
you
look
looking
it up.
that up?
Yep.
Now there may be people who haven't been sworn in. The lady in New Jersey.
Let's see what it says here. Let's
Although that may have
see.
been,
Oh, that's Hungary.
that
No, no,
wasn't a
no.
change. The lady in New Jersey is not a change because I think that was vacated by another Democrat for a bigger job. Maybe,
We've got
maybe the governor.
217 for the Republicans and 213 for the Democrats, with one independent, and we have four vacancies at the moment.
Ah,
So wait a
so
minute. 217 to 213, four vacancies. Uh, whether they decide to fill them or not, because it depends on where the vacancies are at, because it's the
well,
governor who has to
also
call for an election.
usually how close they are to be able to do a primary and an election.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
but it's the governor, Tim. The point is that the governor still has to call for the election, and if he don't call for it, or if he takes his time with it,
but I also there may be legislative constraints where it's too late; it remains vacant until the election. I
right?
think, but I'm not sure
And
there. I'm not sure where. I don't know where we are with those four vacancies.
I don't know
Uh,
what the four vacancies are. Let's see.
oh, I think some of them are in Texas, and Abbott's sitting on them. I think Abbott is sitting on some of those in Texas, maybe two in Texas,
Exactly.
because you got Gonzalez. You got okay, so we've got Swalwell in California, and we have Gonzalez in Texas. So that's both sides have a problem. Uh,
Yeah,
so I,
Gonzalez. We've got Swalwell. We've got California's first district, Doug LaMalfa. He passed away.
uh-huh.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's office. I thought that was filled.
That's filled. Maybe it hasn't been sworn in. Who knows? I think she would
Oh,
her
yeah. He's saying
Republican
that
successor.
they're saying here that the clerk's office hasn't reported it filled yet. All right, so there's really only three vacancies. All right. But
Yeah.
hey, let's move on. There's other topics here, and
Okay.
one in particular. I presume you heard about. How do I put this? That Trump has set up the means in which to pay back the tariffs that he illegally, imposed on products and everything
Okay.
throughout the world. And the funny thing is, I mean, give us that. What do you think that's going to cost to do that? I mean, besides the 166 billion that he's got to refund, okay, what do you think that's going to cost us?
Well, supposedly, don't we have it from the tariffs, or have we spent it in Iraq? In Iran?
Well, we probably already spent it in Iran. I mean,
No, no.
106.
I think they were looking at hitting up the people on Medicaid for to fuel the war in Iran.
Yeah,
Yeah, why? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I
We
yeah,
can't afford
it's
Medicaid,
likely.
but we can afford a war.
Right. We can't afford health care for all, what other countries do, but we can afford, we can have the biggest military on earth and not know what to do with it.
I feel bad for that military because I mean those poor guys. They train for this stuff and everything, but it gets down to, again, it's like a really good baseball team. You could have a whole bunch of superstars on a baseball team, but if you ain't got a manager who can sit there and bring these people together, you ain't got squat.
Yeah, yeah.
And I,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. So
uh,
well, I'm thinking too of speaking of other countries, and tariffs. Canada, Canada has made some progress in their elections. The Liberals have even a greater hold in Canada. And
yep, yep.
yeah, if only there was a basis for Carney to be able to run in the United States, but yeah.
Oh God,
Maybe
that's
after his term is over, the next Democratic administration can hire him as a consultant. That would
there we
be
go.
there we go.
Oh my God,
He'll be
oh
done
my
by
God.
that time probably. So, although Trudeau was in office for quite a while, so maybe Carney will stay there too. But
Which one? Which one, the first or the second one? I think both of them
Oh
weren't
yeah,
they?
yeah. I think they both had long terms, but I think maybe the
Those were
son.
quite popular in Canada. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So I
Oh
think the
my.
son had more terms or more years in office, but Carney has the potential, I guess, for years in office, and as long as his policies hold out, which I think they will. But that also gets to the tariff issue, and I wonder how many of those tariffs were resulted from charges against Canadian firms,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
one wonders
So
about the bourbons, everything the suffering that American companies are still going through from these tariffs.
hmm
I
hmm
wonder what those are, or how consumers suffering, paying more for their bourbon, or
Well,
wait, has
here's
it works
something
the
that'll
way?
irritate you: the mere fact that the consumer themselves, the ones who ultimately paid the tariff, because all that cost is passed on to them,
Yes,
they don't get any refund on that.
no,
We get absolutely no refund. It's the companies who were charged the tariff. What the companies do afterwards with that is up to them. So they're the ones who
exactly.
end up getting this money back.
Nice
Now, whether they
paycheck for
lower
nice
prices or not is
paycheck.
another story.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. So, now
Yeah.
here's something for you. Health. Okay. Yeah. Now you know that the CDC is good. They're appointing a vice admiral or a former vice admiral, a lady who's got credentials up the wazoo, to head the CDC. She is in favor of vaccines, which is a
Yes, I heard.
big, big. Oh my God! I was just so surprised about that, uh, and the mere fact that it seems like maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is coming out of favor. You know,
Is she African American or is she white? What was she? Or Asian? Not
um,
sure.
her name is Erica Schwartz. And that Dr. Erica Schwartz, she was a Rear Admiral retired in the U.S. Public Health Service and Coast Guard. She was a former Deputy Surgeon General during Trump's first term. Brown University combined medical program, Masters of Public Health, a law degree, senior roles in the Coast Guard, health operations, including Deepwater Horizon response. And don't have a picture of her here.
Boy,
Uh,
don't our IT careers shrink?
uh,
You
I have to, I have,
read off that resume and you're like, oh my God, what have I
yeah,
been doing?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's what you do with what you have, and that's what matters in the
Exactly.
end. And so she's widely described as experienced, disciplined, and battle tested. And so she's very much uh, she believes in the vaccine. She believes in in science. Okay, which is a big turnaround for Trump and company, because these guys have been blasting and intelligence for quite a while. They really believe in having stupid people run and support them, and that's what they get.
All right.
And I think folks can see the end result of all of that. And so that was one thing I found interesting. And on top of that, measles cases have just jumped. Just jumped. There were 19 more
Yes, people are.
reported cases in the last week alone, for something that I thought we had eradicated. I
Yeah,
remember
you
getting the
think.
measles shots when I was in school, you know, and I think I even still have the mark for when they did the polio shot on my arm. I think that's the one where they do the little pinprick thing, you know.
Uh huh.
And I just found that fascinating, that people, it's like, do your research, folks. Look at the results of all these vaccines and everything that we've been applying to ourselves since you and I were kids. Okay, and that was a
Yeah.
long time ago. All right, and to sit there and say that this stuff doesn't work, really? You know,
Worked for you. Worked for you, but now you put
never
your
did
kids
me
at
any
risk.
harm.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Christ,
Exactly.
I'm just amazed with
Yeah.
all this. So, by the way, here I've got some interesting information. Let's go back to Hungary just for a second.
Uh huh.
So the Tisza party is what they call it. Okay,
Uh huh.
Fidesz was Orban's. Okay, and the TISA
Yeah.
party got 141 seats in their legislature.
A super majority.
Orban's party, Fidesz, got 52 seats, and another far right party called Mai Hazank got 6 seats. So it
Sounds like
basically,
Hungarian Nazi.
yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing is that the 141 seats is a two-thirds super majority, which basically means that if they want to, they can change everything. Now, I don't know how they what's going to happen. Let's say with their Supreme Court there, that should be interesting to watch because, do they give them lifetime terms or can they start firing people and getting and putting in their own judges? But I know
Right.
they're in a position to change the Constitution so they can set it up so that these people have uh, well, what I'd like to see with ours, for instance, is you have a set of qualifications. In my mind, anybody who we want to appoint to be a Supreme Court justice should have at least 10 years on an appeals court. Period. End of story. You don't have that, you don't get under because the appeals courts are the training ground. Because what is a Supreme Court? It's an appeals court. When you get
Right.
down to it. All right. Second thing is that they should be 60 years or older. That's how you impose a term limit on it because of the fact that our lifespans, that person will only be in office maybe 20 years, 25 years because
Yeah,
our
the most.
lifespans
Yeah.
are, okay?
Yeah.
So that would be the second thing that I would do. This lifetime thing is still okay, but you temper it. Make it so that it's like, okay, if you're not 60 years or older and you don't have 10 years of experience on an appeals court, you don't get nominated. End of story.
Right. Right. Right.
Solves a lot of problems, I think, real quick.
Yeah. They need to set. I don't know what. So we have a lot of reform. Well, you're just talking about the Hungarians right now, right? So, Rich?
Indeed, indeed. Sorry, I was
Oh, yeah.
my tea.
Oh,
You ever see my
okay.
cup? This is my ACLU cup. I've had this for years. I like this cup.
I'll give you one.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, no. I'm thinking if the Hungarians, if they do anything, they need to change their constitution because Orbán changed it so that it would make him win all the time. Only he kept elections, which is something many people here in the United States feared Trump was going to want to try to get rid of, or he wants to try to control them. But you know something? It's like I say with gerrymandering, and you and I have talked about this many times. You can gerrymander all you want, but if you ain't got a message, guess what? You're losing. I don't care how much money you
The New
throw at it.
Jersey,
And how that.
the New Jersey seat turnout. Yeah, the New Jersey seat.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess was. I can't remember who the Democrat was who vacated the seat for a higher level. Maybe the elected governor elect. I'm not sure, but there was a vacancy there, and the turnouts, the turnout for the election was so small. I mean, in 2004, in a presidential year when I ran for Congress, I got 97,000 votes. Okay, but only 30% of my district. These two didn't have 90,000 combined. The Democrat and the Republican didn't have 90,000 combined. So
Oh my God.
turnout is everything, as they say. Turnout is everything. And I forget what the final numbers were, but they were, amazingly small, and because there are a lot of people who are just pissed off, and enough of the Democrats who are pissed off and who will vote, and Republicans who go home crying because, or at home crying because they know what's happened. They know they voted for, pedophiles and crooks and fraudsters, and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the
Now in New Jersey, it was Mickey Sherrill's seat. Remember, she won for governor.
so it was there was
And
the vacated seat.
yeah, it was
So
a
it was her
vacated
vacated.
seat because Mickey Sherrill had run for governor and won, and that's so a
Uh huh.
special election was held, and it was Josh Magia who won. He was the Democrat. Uh,
No, it was a woman who
and
won. The one I saw.
no, this is the only New Jersey vacancy going on. It was just that seat. Sorry, that's what it says.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says. And the turnout, a total ballots cast was 130,488. It's divided by
Okay,
two.
so they
You're
have.
right. Yeah, they each, there was not a very big turnout. And the thing is that according to this, the registered voters in New Jersey 11 is 1.2 million residents with roughly 1.1 million registered voters.
Well, that needs to be
So only
redone.
130,000 voted. Shame on you, folks. Shame on you. You've got so many people out there. Basically, subtract that 1.1 million. You basically have over a, a million people who are letting 130,000 people make a decision for them. That
Right.
is that is nuts, just nuts. And the thing that's going to keep dictator, wannabe dictators,
Uh-huh.
and all that from taking office or controlling our country is going to be the citizens rising up, just like they did in
Right.
Hungary.
Right. Right.
And for them to just sit there and do nothing, they're sitting on their
Uh-huh.
hands. I don't care what kind of, I don't care if it's a school board election. If somebody's running for office to be the dog catcher, you get out there and
Well,
vote.
those have been great. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat is the only seat that's been remained Republican, and the rest have turned over. And local elections, left and right, state level legislative offices have been turning Democrat. We're gerrymandered here in Missouri, and it'll be an interesting election in terms of turnout, I think. And Missouri is so peculiar, and if you put a left leaning issue on the ballot because of turnout, in part because of this turnout in the cities, that left leaning ballot initiative will win, and the ones on
Hmm.
the right don't win. However, when people go to the rural people, when they go to the ballot for legislature, they vote Republican. So, and for statewide, uh, primarily because they're off the presidential cycle, they statewide tend to go to the Republicans. Now, it used to be Missouri was the bellwether state with in the middle, like gosh, I can't remember my former senator's name. McCaskill's voting record put her right in the middle of the Senate voting records. I mean, she was the middle person, and that's what she had to do to maintain.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
But here,
Yeah.
check this out. Check this out. Now, I went ahead and I looked it up, okay, real quick. And the results from this runoff election for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, okay, on
Uh-huh.
April 7th, it was the Republican Clay Fuller got 56% of the vote. Sean Harris,
Right.
a Democrat, got 44%. So it had a total of 129,000 some votes cast. All right, interesting. Then I asked, and I said, okay, and folks, this is how you do your research. You look things up. You make sure you understand what the heck's going on. Now, mind you,
Yeah.
this is stuff that like Tim or I, are usually interested in. But if you want to know what a candidate's standing for or what their past history has been, you've got the means to look it up. Heck, use something like Copilot, because it does it really fast for you. Now, mind you, you have to double and triple check some of the information you get because of the fact that it's searching out on the internet just like you would be, but at least it's faster. Okay, now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all right, when she ran in 2020, her first run, she got 74% of the vote. Okay, the
Right.
Democrat got 25%. In 2024, she got 64% of the vote. So it dropped down a little bit. All right, but still, 64% is a pretty healthy amount. Okay, and so
Uh-huh.
compare that 64% to the 56% that Clay Fuller got. It's becoming a competitive district.
Yes.
Slowly, it's becoming. All of Georgia
Yeah.
is like that. That's why they're all freaked out. The Republicans are all freaked
Well,
out in Georgia
they
because
have to face. The losing Democrat likely is going to be facing that winning Republican in the fall.
that's right.
He's just filling in for a few months.
Yeah.
And they'll be back up. So depending on what happens, a lot. Again, it depends on turnout, and I don't know that the Republicans are. I wonder what the turnout was in that race. If it was a small turnout, then a
But
larger turnout could favor.
in the runoff, race,
Yeah.
in Green's op,
Oh, and the one that just was, and the one that was just held, Marjorie Taylor Greene. What was the total
Okay.
turnout? What was
It
the
was
total number?
129,334.
Yeah, that's a low turnout.
Yeah, well,
That's a
there
low turnout.
usually those special elections are like that. Unfortunately, it gets worse and worse. You get down to a consolidated local election for like school boards and and all that, village boards, city councils and what have you. And
Well,
you know as well as I do, nobody votes. Hardly anybody votes in
well,
those
and
things.
that's what people don't understand about the cheating in elections is that that's where the cheating is likely to occur because it's just a few votes. Just a
Yeah,
few votes can change that result, but it's not nationally significant.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
it
sometimes,
impacts them more.
yeah,
It really does.
right.
It
But
really does.
also, yeah, and there, yeah, in many ways, the but it the often they've added those votes in, and it wouldn't have made a difference. They were being cheaters when they didn't have to be.
Exactly.
They were cheating when they
Exactly.
didn't have
There's
to
no
be.
reason to be. But here's
Yeah.
and folks, here's the difference that you have with these kinds of elections. Where I live in an unincorporated area of Lake County, Illinois. Now you take my property taxes, okay, you go 3.5 blocks west over to Grays Lake, Illinois, cross Route 45, that's where Grays Lake's line is, and you take my property taxes and you multiply them by three. Okay. Now my property taxes were somewhere around $4,500 last year. That's what they're paying in Grays Lake because these folks, it just goes to show you if and the elections. My elections are we get a bigger amount of people participating in it because my representative is on the county board, and usually that's during either a presidential election year or it's in the midterms. So you get more people
Yeah.
voting in those two elections. But for the city council in Grays Lake, oh no, much smaller amount of people voting, but they also pay a lot more taxes because
Right.
So what I'm trying to show you is the impact that those local governments really have on you. You pay a lot more money, and nobody's participating, in voting.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you voted,
Yeah.
it might be a different story. Remember,
Yep.
our ability, our right to vote is our power, is our power. Our numbers are our powers. That's why things like unions were so successful because of our numbers. Okay, and that you put most of all of us together like that, and people like Donald Trump back down real quick. And that,
Yes.
he becomes Taco Man.
Yeah.
Well, hey Tim, I think we've been talking for a little bit here, haven't we?
Yeah, we got 30. Actually, we did about perfect. 32 minutes. 32 minutes and
Yeah,
33 minutes here. Yeah, it was pretty good.
yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah,
it's been fun.
when we
I
do
have,
wrap up,
it's good. We haven't done this one for a while, and
yeah,
so it's been fun.
I
Just
need
so
to do
folks
some of the
know.
individual ones too. I think about
Oh,
some of the. I've seen your individual ones. I like to do some of those too.
well, thank you,
When I get
thank you.
inspired. Well,
Yeah,
I need the login.
and we will get that. We will work on that. And so, folks,
Right,
also,
right, right,
all right. So, folks, just so you know, and that we have interviews being planned, and that just like we did when we interviewed Eric Reinhardt, the state's attorney of Lake County, or Holly Kim, who ran for Illinois comptroller, and so we're planning more in that in the future here.
Get
I know,
people who are
and we're
interested.
doing
I
it.
got to get around.
You got a what?
I'm working on some downstate. I'm working on some downstate Illinois people and on our Missouri races, and so I hope to have those. I have the contacts. We just need to put them in the schedule somehow.
Yeah, exactly it. So we're working on those, folks. Stay tuned, and we'll be back. Otherwise, my name is Rich Garling, and
I'm
this
Tim
is,
Bagwell,
and we wish you a good day.
and this has been.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Democratic Defenders with Tim Bagwell and Rich Garling. To listen to or read more of Tim's or Rich's work, go to and subscribe at tcbagwell.substack.com or richgarlic.substack.com or go to Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.